let's talk about the future. And you know, my buddy and our friend Jay Billis has already chimed in, and I knew what he would say. I mean, he's been saying it: free market, the whole damn thing, right? And this just shows you it does level the playing field. Alabama isn't the top recruiting class. Jackson State is being talked about as a peer, regardless of whether the allegations are true. That free market will actually show the way, and that's the way it is in our economy, in our world, and it should be that way for college athletics. And you hear many different coaches lament NIL, period. And in between is somewhat potentially the future. What do you think the future is? Is it just staying the course and figuring everything out for yourself and everybody calling each other out? Or is it maybe what Gene Smith of Ohio State threw out as quote unquote just throwing stuff out, that select teams come together under the college football playoff banner and create their own super league? What do you think?
I mean, it could get to that. I think one of the most interesting aspects of this to me is going to be, you know, I've talked to a lot of coaches in the last week and a half, and one of the things that's really come up is the agents are really driving this, and that part has gotten, as they see it, out of control. And okay, what is out of control when it relates to college football recruiting? Because that's a you know, a big field to cover with a lot of minefields in it. And as you know, the discussion of this is, are players being tampered with? Well, what's really seems to be going on a lot is agents will shop players around saying, hey, I got a guy, you know, what would you pay for him? And that's before the kid is in the portal. And those discussions are going on. Now, what adds to that is agents have seen, and I'm just talking in the last, 4 months, hey, we can get $6-8 million contract for a high school recruit who's not even a senior yet. He may have ability. He may have been ranked a 4 or 5-star player. And a lot of these programs, and look, it's not a coincidence. Texas A&M has a lot of money, and there's a lot of desperation. They've had one really good season in 50 years. So, you know, there's desperation there. There's desperation at a place like Tennessee. You know, they've fallen from relevancy. So those money people are going to try to go all in, and they're basically hoping their 7-figure, you know, recruit is going to be Cam Newton for them, which in reality is, you know, as much as the hype is for those guys, the average, you know, hit rate in the last 10 years on those 5-star quarterbacks is actually about 30%. In terms of 30% turn out to be close to what they are. I'm not talking about they turn out to be Cam Newton. They turn out to be, you know, big time players. The rest turn out to fizzle out. That's before you put all the money on them and all the expectations and all the other stuff that's going to come with it. So I think what's going to be really interesting to see is when all these big contracts get put on for a handful of players, how does it impact those kids? How does it impact the programs? Because everybody inside those programs know it. So you may sign a quarterback for 7 figures who's maybe making triple what your starting quarterback's making. How is that going to work out? You know, so there's just a lot of stuff that I don't think anyone really knows how it's going to play, because logic doesn't always dictate what happens with money people when you put in ego and desperation on top of it.
Well, then it's going to take a lawsuit. I just don't know who's going to file it.
Lots of lawsuits. Agents, collective, you know, big money people usually have big money attorneys to try to back them.
Well,
maybe they're going to be right, maybe they're going to be wrong, but the NCAA's lost a lot.
Right. Well, the reason what I'm bringing, I'm forgetting the NCAA. I think they're in over their heads. I mean, you saw how much money they've wasted on lawsuits that they've lost. Right. I mean, they're finished. Honestly, they're finished. They've already been told they're irrelevant by the Supreme Court and to watch their step. You're already seeing everybody just do whatever the hell they want to do anyway. The school presidents have their heads in the sand when it comes to this sort of thing. So the reason why I'm bringing up what will bring some change is something that Nick Saban literally just said, and then some kid suing a school because he didn't get fully paid. And the reason why he didn't get fully paid is because he left for a transfer portal because he didn't get what was promised on the field and what was promised off the field, and lay everything bare in discovery. And that's what I'm thinking I'm just trying to think ahead here as to where this is all going because nobody knows, and that's obvious, and it's now ugly. There's just no other way to put it, Bruce.
Yeah, and the lawsuits are going to keep coming because I think it is a big money grab. There's a lot of people who were not connected to college football before, attorneys who've seen this opportunity, and they see, it's really an uncharted path. So all of a sudden now you have a bunch of agents who I'm not talking about like agents like Jimmy Sexton agent, Drew Rosenhaus agent. I'm not saying that those guys won't get involved in, in marketing aspect of some of those NFL firms. But what you have is a lot of people who were never in this space before, and they're looking at it going, wait a minute, this kid's rated as a 5-star. I can get him on a plane to like 7 programs who I think are desperate or have money, and let's see how high I can get them to jump. And those kinds of things, when people are trying to police it and rein it in, it's just kind of a recipe for chaos. And I don't want to say a recipe for disaster because I don't think, I don't want to, put, the judgment on it or whatever, because I feel like the system was so tilted the wrong way for so long. It's just, I think you're going to see a lot of people trying to get their pound of flesh in this.
I agree. Chaos is a perfect word for it. And again, that's why I think a bunch of schools will not appreciate the chaos. Certainly school presidents won't. And then because it lends to way too much economic uncertainty as to how much money is required to have a football program that's successful. You can't depend on it. You can't budget for it. You can't do anything like that, which is why a bunch of schools are going to get together and say, let's just play ourselves and screw everybody else. I honestly think that's the way this is going, Bruce. That's the way I go.
Look, and you have, go back to the Reggie Bush scandal. My colleague at Fox now, by the way. Go back to the Reggie Bush scandal at USC.
That's like quaint now.
Down on them
that's quaint.
So hard.
Yeah.
So hard on them after. And it was not to keep Reggie Bush in school, by the way.
Right.
It was tied to, after. But, like, a lot of USC money people were like, hey, we should just go away from the NCAA and we'll do our own thing. And at that point, it just seemed like so out of left field. I'm not saying there got any traction to that, but there was a lot of chatter amongst USC people about that. I think we're way closer to that now than we ever were for a bunch of stuff, for a bunch of reasons. And there's TV money there that, we see it in terms of, this better than anybody. Networks are desperate for programming and everything, and there's a lot of interest, not NFL interest, but there's a lot of interest in college football.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.